The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Market Fantasy. Up to 1K in deposit match on Market Fantasy with the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It's currently Sunday afternoon, July 13th, around 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to break down the first three events after Wimbledon. Going to break down Bastad, Gstaad, and Los Cabos as well. So 2 clay events taking place in Europe and 1 hardcourt event taking place in Mexico. Should be a pretty fun collection of matches taking place the upcoming week. Before we get into that, though, a reminder that you can support the show by leaving a like and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Plus, a reminder, you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple, because the podcast is also available in audio formats only. To check out the tennis podcast either on YouTube for live stream formats or check out the podcast for audio formats in Spotify and Apple. But don't forget to leave a rating and a review there. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the actual channel. Plus, a reminder, we have a lot of great overall merchandise for the tennis show. So check out the SGPN merch store. We have shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs. High quality, very affordable, different colors. Check it out as well. Plus, a reminder, you can find all the picks and podcasts from the network, not just this show, but for the other shows as well, on the SGPN feed, on Spotify and Apple. Plus, check out the SGPN app, free to download. So if you want all the picks and podcasts, download the app, free to download on the app stores. Starting off, though, with the recap of the men's final in Wimbledon, we ended up having a decent episode, got basically everything right, except for the lock. And that was a bit of a heartbreaker. We had the over 40.5 games in the Alcaraz and Sinner match at minus 120. Bunch of chances. Alcaraz needed one more hold in the third set. Did not get it. He got broken. And then he eventually had 15-40 in the middle of the fourth set. Didn't convert the 2 breakpoint chances, so he had a couple of chances to get there. Instead, the match landed 40. Bit of a heartbreaker there, but either way, picked up a loss for the lock. Dog nice and easy with Sinner minus half a game at plus 100 as he won in 4 sets. So once again, we called Sinner to win the match in 4, and that's what happened. The problem was there was no tiebreak involved, and because of that, the actual match went under. We had a bunch of chances for Alcaraz. He just couldn't convert any of the big points we needed. But nice job by Sinner, winning his first ever Wimbledon title, and we did end up winning the outright either way, as we had both Alcaraz and Sinner to win Wimbledon. Sinner was better priced, though, as he was around plus 200. So overall, nice outright for us as well. Not going to victory lap it too much because we only picked 2 guys, and they're the 2 best guys in the world, and they made it to the final. So either way, nice outright win for us there with Sinner. But the lock was pretty annoying because Alcaraz had chances, did not convert them, and the match went under by a hook. But either way, Sinner did win his first ever Wimbledon title, and he was looking dominant for the entire event besides the one match against Dimitrov. Even the first set against Alcaraz, he kind of punted away. He was up a break early and got broken, then broken again. So the one set Alcaraz actually won was kind of fluky in a way, but it felt like Sinner was dominating play for most of it, and Alcaraz's serve was being picked apart because his first serve percentages were not good enough. I believe he landed 53% of his first serve points, or first serves, I mean. And because of that, his second serve was really not good enough to help him survive. Look at the actual numbers here. Alcaraz landed 53% of the first serve, and he only won 51% of the second serve points. Sinner, by comparison, landed 62% of his first serves, and he also won 74% of the first serve points and 61% of the second serve points. But it felt like Sinner was in the driver's seat for most of it, and the question was if he'd choke or not. And he almost did in that fourth set, but Alcaraz could not convert the breakpoint chances. But still, Sinner survived, got the job done, and finally exercised the demons as he was able to beat Alcaraz for the first time in an ATP match since 2023. So good job by him there. As a result, a lot of people were extremely mad and I'd say annoyed that Sinner won with the asterisk claim next to it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't care. Sinner won the title. I don't really have any ill feelings towards him. If you want to root for Sinner to be suspended, and you'll get a worse tournament involved. That's you. As an actual fan of the sport, I like seeing the best players compete in the sport, and coincidentally, Swiatek and Sinner are the best players, and they ended up winning the title here in Wimbledon. So I have no actual feelings of bitterness to the ATP. I don't have any type of, I'd say, tough feelings towards Sinner. I don't really care. Congratulations to Sinner, best player in the world. He was 1 point away from holding all 4 Grand Slam titles at the same time, because he did end up winning Wimbledon this year. He won the US Open last year. He won the Aussie Open this year, and he had 3 title points against Alcaraz, and he blew him. So Sinner is the best player in the world. If you want to argue Alcaraz, that's you. That's not me. I think Sinner's number 1 in the world, and he proved it on Sunday, as he was able to beat Alcaraz pretty comfortably, I'd say. Yes, I know he fumbled the first set away, but he was in control of pretty much every set early, and he looked better. And Alcaraz acknowledged it. He kept telling his box. He kept going for drop shots because he was getting outplayed by the baseline. He was. The drop shots weren't that good, but Alcaraz knew he had to change something up. And it seemed like Sinner was a step ahead of him the entire match. But for the sake of the actual event itself, Sinner was the best player in the event. He looked like it, and he answered the call. All I have to say, but nice job by Sinner winning the title. Nothing else to really add. And Sinner, once again, is in firm control of number 1 in the world with the actual point system. And in my opinion, he's number 1 in the world by a decent margin, because I know he choked away the French Open against Alcaraz. He still has won 2 of the 3 Grand Slams so far this season, with 3 title points for the other one. So there is a world, actually, where Sinner ends up winning the US Open, and he was 1 point away from winning the Grand Slam in a season. That's a possibility. Just going to throw it out there. That could be a possibility here, but either way, nice job by Sinner getting the job done. Nothing else to really add for the event itself. Alcaraz did not play that well. I would say Alcaraz played his C match, C plus match, give or take. I thought Sinner could have played better too, but his default level's higher than Alcaraz's default level. I thought Sinner played a B plus match, maybe an A minus. I thought Alcaraz was in the CC plus territory. All that mattered, as Sinner did win in 4. Called it to a T, but unfortunately the over did not get there. So there you go. Check out the comment section, though, quickly before we move on into the 3 events taking place next week. I see Richie mentioning the over did not get there. Yeah, it was a pain in the ass that it didn't get there, lost by a hook. I see Ian stopping by, Matt stopping by as well, Enigma stopping by, Nick stopping by, and Manzi stopping by as well. So there we go. A point is, once again, fun overall event. It was pure chalk. Every year in Wimbledon, just bet the chalk. It's a waste of money betting on outrights that are actual long shots, unless you're doing it on the women's side. But you ended up seeing a very chalky event over the last couple of rounds, as expected, and there we go. So we'll see what happens in the US Open. Should be a pretty similar outcome, to be honest, because Sinner and Alcaraz own the tour at this point. But we got a pretty entertaining matchup on Sunday. It was going to be impossible to match the intensity and the drama of the French Open final. But you know what? A 4-setter between the 2 best players in the world is not too shabby. So once again, not going to be too greedy about the match itself. It was not nearly as good as the French Open. Pretty much every match ever is not that good, so keep that in mind. But it was a fun matchup, and we'll see what happens in the US Open, but that's down the road. Instead, we're going to focus on the 3 events taking place the upcoming week, 2 50s, 2 on clay, and 1 on hard court. Now, before we get into any of the actual tournament breakdowns, a reminder that we are brought to you by our sponsor, Circa, still hosting the football contest for Circa Million Circa Survivor. If you think you know ball, you can prove it. Enter Circus Football Contest with $21 million in guaranteed prizes. There's no rake, so the entries go above the guarantee. All the extra money will be added to the prize pool. Circa Million, pick 5 teams ATS each week, or go for the ultimate sweat in Circa Survivor. There's also a Circa Grandissimo, a 100K Circa contest. You want to register in person at Circa Sportsbook in Nevada. When you sign up, you can play from anywhere with the help of SGPN's official proxy. Go to footballcontest.com. Use code SGP to get $50 off your proxy fees. We're also brought to you by MyBookADG because they're available in a ton of locations. Use them to bet on baseball, to bet on tennis, WNBA, golf, and of course football futures. Use crypto for fast payouts. Use deposit sign up for your new account. Use code SGPN to get a special 100% match up to 1K. Terms and conditions apply. MyBookADG promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of Wimbledon final on Sunday. Time to move on into the preview of the three events taking place over the next week. Now, for the actual order of operations, we go by which match starts first on Monday. So Gstaad will go first, then Bastad, then Los Cabos will do last. So starting off with Gstaad, this is a pretty entertaining event in general. Last year, we took Berrettini, who ran through those two clay events without dropping a set. We made so much money betting on Berrettini last year. Unfortunately, he dropped out of the event. Him and Zverev were supposed to be here, decided not to be here, and as a result, we have a pretty weak field compared to most seasons. But for recent winners, Berrettini beat Hallis. Kachin ended up beating Ramos Vinolas the year prior. You saw Ruud beat Berrettini, and Ruud beat Gaston in the previous year. So Gstaad, once again, was good to us last year as we rode the Berrettini train. Can't do it this year. We'll see what happens. But for the actual outrights for the event, you have Ruud back, who skipped Wimbledon. One, doesn't care about grass. Two, he was injured, so we'll see how he does. Of course, he won a Masters 1000 title earlier this year. He's an elite clay player. We'll see how in form he is based on health, but he's plus 130. Bublik is here at plus 550. Etcheverry is at 750. You have De Geer at 9-1. Majcik at 12-1 off the pretty good run there in Wimbledon. Comasagna is at 14-1. You have Kim at 22-1. Challenger guy, pretty good though. You have Struff at 28-1. Martinez at 28-1. I don't know how healthy the shoulder is, but we saw him win a round in Wimbledon. He had the shoulder issue against Sinner. He couldn't serve, and we'll see how he looks in this one. Kaza, 28-1. Basilashvili, 33-1. Baena, 33-1. Wawrinka, 33-1. You have Cerundolo, the other one, the JM one, at 40-1. And you have Landalucci if you want to go for the young Spaniard at 40-1 there. Skipping some other guys, though, you have Rinderknecht 40-1, Shevchenko 40-1. You can go down the line, Goffin 50-1, etc. I don't see a super long shot winning, at least from 40 plus, I'll say 45-1 onward. I don't see a super long shot winning. So the real question is, do I think Ruud is worthy of being this big of a favorite? The answer is yes. I get it. I mean, looking at the events in the past, he has been a champion here before. He won the title in once again, the final against Berrettini and the title against Gaston. So yes, when healthy, we called him the Clay 250 merchant for a reason. It's the type of events he'd win. So I'm not surprised Ruud is a big favorite. I think that you could argue it's actually a good number when you're factoring in if Ruud was not battling injuries. He might even be a minus price here. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Ruud was like a minus 110 or a plus 100, because when healthy, he's clearly the best player on clay in this event. The second favorite is Bublik. I know Bublik made the quarters of the French Open, but still, he's never been viewed as a good clay player. He's second favorite. Ruud, when healthy, I think should win this competition. The argument is, will he show any ill effects of the injuries? I think he should be fine in reality. I think Ruud had some time off. He skipped Wimbledon intentionally to get ready for the clay, I'd say, not really the clay season, the clay, I'd say, bump in action before going back to hard court. I think that he's ready to roll, personally. Looking at the actual draw, though, favorable for Ruud. He does have a bye, then Stricker or Herbert. Should beat either guy easily. He's in the same section as Goffin or Landalucci. That's fine. You're looking at his half being De Geer or Martinez. Should be fine, too. I gotta take it. Give me Ruud at plus 170. I found a 170 on FanDuel. It's a good price. Not gonna pass up on it. He's the 250 clay merchant. It's a good tournament for him. A weak field in general, now that Berrettini and Zverev dropped out. Give me Ruud to dominate the weak clay field at plus 170, but I'm going to go with longer shots. I'm skipping Bublik. I know that he was very good in the clay slate this year, and I know that he won a title in hollow on grass, lost in the first round to Munar in Wimbledon, so he's had some time off. Do I think mentally he'll be fully engaged in this clay event? We don't know. Like, Bublik's kept it together mentally for a couple months now. I'm not taking 550. I don't see value in that. Is his draw favorable? It's not bad, I'll be honest, but I do think that Bublik, I'd say mentally, is not really worthy of being a 550 on clay. And if he faced off against Ruud, I'd take Ruud in 2 seconds. So I'm not going to pick him to win the event. Instead, I will actually target him and go for the bottom half. I'll go for the immediate quarter. And I do think looking at some long shots in that bottom half, in that Bublik quarter, can be quite intriguing. So I'm going to go with Ruud as the main favorite. I'm skipping, though, Bublik at 550. I like Echeverry. I'm not taking him. He's never won a title on the ATP level before. I think 750 is too cheap. Desir is fine. He won a clay title this year earlier, but I do think 9-1 when he's in the same half as Ruud is not appealing to me. I'll pass instead. I'm going with some longer shots, some guys that I think can do some damage. And looking at the Bublik quarter, you do have a couple of guys in Comasagna and in Baena who I think can make it interesting. The issue is picking a long shot who you think can maybe make it all the way to the end, not just winning a round or two. Comasagna, I think, can at least make a respectable run. He was pretty good on clay earlier this year. 23-1, though. Rogue price on FanDuel. Said before that BetMGM had 14-1. I see 23-1. Great price there. He's a guy who had a bit of a rough go of it recently because he's not a great grass player. But on clay, he was objectively speaking solid so far this season, and I do think he can make some noise in his immediate section. The actual draw is not bad. Does have a qualifier, then either Baena or Taberner, so I think he should potentially face off against Baena in that matchup. And then Bublik, who knows? But I think you're looking at what could be a good opportunity for one of those two guys to go on a good run. They're in the same half as Rinderknech. Echeverry, who we know never actually wins ATP titles, so you're looking at what could be a good draw for Comasagna. And for Baena, I'll take some swings, though. I think Ruud is a worthy favorite, but in case of injury, I'll go with some longer shots just in case. Give me Comasagna at 23-1, and give me Baena at 40-1. I like the price for a guy who's won multiple titles on clay in the ATP level, so I think that Baena at 40-1 is a good price. He's favored against Taberner. Yes, he did retire mid-match last time out, but that was about a week ago, and that was in a challenger event. Conceptually, it makes sense to retire if you're not feeling great in a challenger when you're about to play an ATP event with more prize money upcoming the next week. So once again, I do think that Baena at 40-1 is worth a shot. He's an objectively speaking solid clay player on the ATP level, and he has won titles on clay before at this level. 40-1, I think is a great price. Now, he would face off against Comasagna in the second round, which would make it a bit interesting. But I do think for the value alone, I will fade Bublik on clay. I'll dare him mentally to reset and keep that same, I'd say, that same overall focus after the third Grand Slam. And now you have about a month or so gap before the fourth Grand Slam. We might see a bit of a slip up from Bublik mentally, and if that happened, it wouldn't shock me. But I'll go with two longer shots in the bottom half. I'll avoid Ruud. I think Ruud should win, but if he's injured, I'll go with some long shots that can make some noise. Give me Baena at 40-1. And give me Comasagna at 23-1 as my long shots for the event. By the way, we have no quarter odds there, so apologies for this overall event. But we have no quarters in general, so apologies. Going to be a bit of a shorter breakdown for each tournament. See a new face, though. I see Vince stopping by, so welcome, Vince. Hopefully you enjoy the live stream. Hopefully you enjoy the show. And once again, hopefully you've been cashing some bets with us over the last couple of weeks. Anyway, time to move on into the next event. We have Bastad taking place in Sweden. So for this one, we had the very weird final last year of Nadal, who was about to retire, who made the final, and he ended up losing to Borges in, I believe it was straight sets in that matchup. Year before, you have Rublev beating Ruud, you had Cerundolo beating Baez, and you had Ruud beating Coria. So the point is, Borges won the title last year. He's back here again. It was a very fluky title run, to be honest here. Borges beat basically nobody. Nadal made it to the final. He had the epic 3-hour marathon, I think it might have been 4 hours actually, against Navone. But besides that, Nadal ended up beating a couple of qualifiers, and you could tell he was well past his prime, and Borges had a very, very compromised Nadal in the final, and he ran through him. So I don't think Borges is that great on clay, but he had a great draw, and Nadal had a bunch of marathons because weak competition. And it felt like Nadal's draw really opened up for him, and eventually he lost. But Nadal was in, I would say, average at best form. The win against Navone was an insane match in itself. But still, I feel like Borges got handed a title, and I don't think he's that great of a clay player. He's fine, but for the odds here, you have Cerundolo at plus 225, Griekspoor at 6-1, who did win the grass title, which we had money on him for right before Wimbledon. Navone at 8-1, your Borges at 9-1, Darderi at 11-1, Baez, former champion, at around 12-1. Former finalist, did lose to Cerundolo there. So Cerundolo is a former champion. Baez, former finalist at 12-1. You have Offner at 14-1. You have Moeller at 14-1. Ugo Carbelli at 16-1. Green at 16-1, De Jong at 16-1, De Zandschulp at 20-1, Faria 28-1. You kind of get the point. So for the event in itself, said before, Cerundolo is a former champion. The question is, will he actually win it again? Now, it's been a weird year for Cerundolo. He was in great form to start the year, and it feels like he's been priced too cheaply in a lot of events, and he's really not lived up to the, I'd say, standard of being a low-priced favorite, quote-unquote, at plus money. And I do think for the sake of the value itself, I have no interest in Cerundolo. I think the draw is not that great for him, and I think that 225 is a pretty cheap price. Cerundolo does have a buy, then probably Navone in the second round. I feel bad for Navone. Like, I would take Navone to win more clay events if his draw was not constantly impossible. Navone ends up in the hardest draws in every clay event, and I hate it. But I do think for Cerundolo's case, it is not a favorable draw. He would have Navone in the second round, potentially Offner, maybe. Could be De Geer or maybe Gaston. Probably not Gaston, based on recent form. But not a great draw for Cerundolo as a 225 favorite when you have a pretty good clay player in the second round in Navone. I'm going to pass on Cerundolo. He's not really been in great form recently. He's made a couple of good runs in clay events as well, but he's really not been able to finish the job off, and I do think this price is too cheap because of it, so I'll pass on Cerundolo as the favorite. Now, Greek Sport 6-1, I think is fine on clay. Did lose in the clay final to Darderi back in Marrakech a couple months ago, but his draw is not that bad. He's in the other half of the draw, so he avoids Cerundolo and buys, etc. But he does have a buy, then probably Faria in the second round. Similar players, but Greek Sport's better, and you're looking at his immediate quarter being Capriva, Delian, De Jong, or a relative unknown who has no chance. I think Greeks will be a decent favorite in those matchups. Capriva could be interesting. Delian's more of a rallier, but I don't think that those guys are great servers. Greek Sport's serve should give him an edge against that competition. I think he should win that one as well. Now, for the half, he has Garin, Ugo Carabelli, Borges, who once again I'm not sold on as defending champion. So I do think you're looking at a spot where Greek Sport's overall draw in half is favorable. And I saw 6-1 on BetMGM. I found 11-1 on FanDuel. FanDuel's outright prices are very generous at times, and I feel like Greek Sport 11-1 is a great price for a couple reasons. One, his half is not that bad as the top half. Two, he is a solid player. He won a title on grass about a couple weeks ago. He made it to the final on clay a couple months ago. He's a pretty solid all-surface player. And I do think the issue we ran into against Brooksby in Wimbledon was fatigue. He struggled in the back end of that second set against Moutet in the final, and it felt like he was out of gas. Now he is about a week or two off. I think he'll look fine here, and I do think that his overall half is favorable. Give me 11-1 for one of the better players in terms of all-around talent in this field. I'll take him at 11-1. Now, I understand this guy I'm going to mention has been really bad recently, but that was mostly on grass, which he's terrible at. I do think Darderi, by the way, at 11-1, I'm not interested in. I'm skipping Navone. The draw is too tough with Cerundolo in the second round. Borges, I'm not interested in. I don't think he's that good. I think that he had a great draw last year, which is favorable. And Darderi, I think, is interesting, but not really sold on his draw. It could be a bit tricky. Does have the same immediate section as Baez, and Baez is 4-1 lifetime against Darderi. So I skipped him. But I did go Baez at 16-1. It's a common theme here. Baez, yes, I know he can be very streaky, and I know that he can be very annoying to bet on. However, 16-1 for one of the better clay players on tour is a great price. His draw is very nice as well. Has a bye, then a qualifier, then probably Darderi, who is owning the head-to-head. And I think he can beat Cerundolo on clay. I do think that he is worthy of being a cheaper price, in my opinion. Said before that Baez was 12-1 on BetMGM. I found 16-1. I think he's objectively speaking a very solid clay player. He's a threat to win any clay 250. And this is an event that's right up his alley. He made the final here a couple years ago. I see a good opportunity for him at this price. Give me Baez at 16-1 as my second choice for the actual event. And for the third choice, you know what? I will go super long shot here. Give me De Jong at 20-1. Thought he was pretty good in the clay season. He also took a set off Alcaraz on clay last year. His draw, though, is very favorable. Has a matchup against a complete unknown, basically a bye in the first round. Then his immediate section is featuring Capriva or Delian. He's in the same immediate quarter as Griekspoor. But you know what? I do think Griekspoor, if he does slip up, De Jong could maybe sneak in there. He's been good on clay this season. I think 20-1 makes sense when you have a bye, basically, in the first round. Yes, Capriva can be dangerous. Same with Delian, but I think that 20-1 makes sense for what could be a decent clay player being mispriced. Will he win the event? Probably not, but I think for the actual draw itself, I don't mind it. Give me De Jong at plus 2,000 as my third choice for the event. So once again, for Bastad, give me Griekspoor at 11-1. Give me Baez at 16-1. And give me De Jong at 20-1. Think the odds on Cerundolo just feel fundamentally off to me. And I do think with the lack of, I'd say, great options, because Navone, for example, is third favorite, and he's against Cerundolo in the second round. So I see a good opportunity to go for Griekspoor in the other half and to go for some longer shots, getting creative for the actual events. That's my thoughts on Bastad. Moving on to the only hardcourt event of the actual week, you have Los Cabos. Now, for the event in itself, Los Cabos has been pretty, I'd say, unpredictable. You saw Thompson beat Ruud. I believe that was his first ever ATP title, despite being around for a while in singles. He won a couple titles in doubles, of course. Beat Ruud, had the crazy run last year, beat Zverev in there. He was a marathon man, and he was able to, I think he won the singles and doubles title there last year in general. But Thompson had the Cinderella run against Ruud, ended up seeing Tsitsipas beat De Minaur. You saw Medvedev beat Nori, and Nori beat Nakashima. So in general, good rallying does do you a pretty solid favor in the event in itself. Court speed's not that fast, so you will see a lot of long rallies. Big serves don't really do much in the actual event. Sometimes they help, but it does help out. I'd say it's a bigger benefit to have a good all-around game on the courts here in Los Cabos. So having a good serve can help you, but ralliers tend to do pretty well here as well. So I'm not going to overreact to good servers on hard court here. I see a pretty fun tournament based on the actual field. Should be an unpredictable one, at least based on the history of the event. But you have a couple of clear favorites in the field here. For the odds, you have Rublev at 200. You have Fokina at 450. You have Shapo at 6-1. You have Hallis at 10-1. You have Smith at 14-1. Basaveretti at 14-1. Manarino, who made the final actually in Newport and ended up losing in the final, but he was playing last week, did well on grass, but now we'll see how he does on hard court. You have Altmaier at 16-1, Vukic at 18-1, Kovacevic at 25-1, Nava at 28-1, Duckworth at 28-1, Boo at 33-1. You kind of get the point. So for the actual path of every favorite here, Rublev's path is pretty favorable. Now, Los Cabos is pretty, I'd say, well known in my eyes, at least, for the weak fields in general, because they stack the fields with Mexican wildcards who get their asses kicked in the first round every time. So Rublev, in his actual path, has a bye, then Taro Daniel, who's been really bad on hard court, or Hernandez, a Mexican wildcard, then either Boo, Vukic, or Nava. So a very favorable draw for Rublev. A very favorable draw. Same half as Hallis or potentially Kovacevic. But you're looking at a very favorable quarter for Rublev. I agree with the pricing. I'll take him at 2-1. I think that he's, once again, basically a shoo-in to make it to the semis. And with that being the case, I do think there's value on him at 2-1. I want to be favored in every match he's in. So give me Rublev at 2-1, a very good hardcourt player, won a hardcourt title this year. Yes, I understand he can be very streaky, but he made a good run in Wimbledon, did lose in 4 to Alcaraz. But I like how he's been playing lately, and I do think the courts here can benefit his game. He has a pretty good serve. We know he's got a ton of firepower, but I think he's the best overall hardcourt player in the field. Give me Rublev at 2-1. Think that he can look sharp here in Mexico. Now, this opens up an interesting conversation for the other options, because Shapo's been a mess lately. He did win a hardcourt title earlier this year. I can't take him. He's been really bad. I'll pass on Shapo at 6-1. Fokina is the weird one, because he's at 450. He made a final in Mexico earlier this year. He lost to Hallis in the final. But the point is, we know that Fokina can handle the courts here. We know that his game has been impressive lately. I thought he looked decent in Wimbledon as well. The problem is he's never won an ATP title before, and he's 450 to win it. So Fokina, I would consider picking. The price, though, is too cheap. I only saw lines on BetMGM. So I do think that Fokina makes a lot of sense for the event. I might take him if there's better prices available. But for the only book that I saw, at BetMGM, the only book with outright odds available for Los Cabos. Fekina at 450 is too cheap. I would take him at like 7-1 maybe, but 450 is just not the price I'm looking for. So I'll pass on Fekina for this one. I'm moving on to the other options. Hallis, I thought about as well. Same half as Rublev, which is not ideal, not really in great form recently, but I think it makes sense at 10-1. I think his quarter is not that bad. Same quarter, second round as Kachmazov or Fikovic. So once again, a pretty favorable draw there in the second round after the bye. Same quarter as Kovacevic, Habib. You have a Mexican qualifier or wild card and McCabe. So a pretty common theme here. A lot of the depth in the event is non-existent. You have a lot of wild cards and challenger guys just playing on hard court who have no chance at actually winning. So you have to get a bit creative when it comes to picking guys to win the event. Fekina makes a lot of sense. The price was not good enough, but I do think at 7-1, if I find that price, I'll take him. If Fekina wins the event, good to him. I'll, congratulate him for it, but I can't take him for the price. I'll go Hallis at 10-1. I think Hallis has a pretty good serve. I do think that his firepower can overwhelm some guys. He's been underwhelming lately, but I do like his draw, and I do think if he's in form, he can beat some good players. I believe he beat Rublev earlier this year in Dubai, so I know they can handle the opportunity of beating Rublev in a head-to-head matchup. I'll go Hallis at 10-1. I think that once again, it's a decent price for a guy with upside who I know can compete in ATP events, unlike a decent amount of the longer shots here in the event. For the final guy, I'm going to go with an American, actually, who did make a final on hard court this year. Give me Kovacevic at 25-1. Did lose in an indoor event to Felix in 3 sets in the final, but I think his draw is not that bad. He's a very good hard court player, and I do think after struggling on grass, which is not a good surface for him, I think he'll bounce back here. Has a nice draw in general. Has a Beeb in the first round. He's a decent favorite. McCabe or a Mexican wild card in the second round. Think he might be able to beat Hallis in the third round potentially, but it kind of opens up an interesting conversation for the bottom half, because I do think that it's a great draw for Fekina. I can't take him for the price, and Chapo I can't stand. So I'm going to go with some bolder options here. Once again, I'll add Fekina if I see him at 7-1, but the only book with lines had Fekina at 450, which I can't take on principle. So once again, my picks here for the outrights in Los Cabos, the favorite's going to be on Rublev at 2-1. I'm going to go with Hallis at 10-1, and I'll go with Kovacevic at 25-1. We know that when he's on point, he can make an ATP final. We saw that a couple months ago, and I do think on hard court he's at his best. Give me Kovacevic on my long shot here at 25-1. It's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual outrights for the 3 events in Gstaad, Bastad, and in Los Cabos. See Manzi agreeing that it's flipping a coin with Fekina. The price isn't good enough. I love his draw. I would take him easily if it was a better price. 450, that is a hard pass as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to pass on him there. If you want to go for him, though, I'm rooting for you. But I'll wait for better odds available, potentially, in the next few days. Anyway, time to move on into the actual Lock and Dog picks for the show. Before we get to that, the reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor. And a reminder that our sponsor is, just quickly pulling it up right now. Trying to also get rid of the comment here on the page. So we are brought to you by our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, because they're doing Best Ball Mania, happening all summer long. Give away 15 million prizes, including 2 million for first place. No waiver wire, no arguments about trades. Best ball is the best way to play fantasy football. They also have a great Pick'em contest if you want to enter that. So check out Pick'em for the entries. You can make some money that way. But a reminder, if you sign up for your new account, use code SGPN to get a special pick and a first time that offer up to 1K in bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm because they have power trends, which are the best of what the house model has to offer. Edited patterns, Rhythm's models give you great picks, and they have a high ROI. Power trends are updated every day on Rhythm, and they have a great overall record so far. MLB, they have a win rate of 63%, and for WNBA, they are 35-20 since launch. 20.7% ROI. Down the app, though, check out Power Trends, start betting smarter. And a reminder, you can always get the free trial for a week by using the 7-day free trial. Go to sportsgamblers.com/rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Sportsgamblers.com/rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the 3 events taking place over the next week. Time to move on into the Lock and Dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go to Bastad. I'm going to go with Emer. Now, there are a couple of Emers in the event, so I'm going to go with Emer. I'm going to go with Elias. Give me Elias Emer on the money line at minus 140. So Emer is Swedish, so he will have crowd support for this one. And you're looking at Emer, who's been quite good on clay lately. He's won 4 of his last 6 clay matches. Now he's against Boyer, and Boyer has been awful on clay lately. Boyer has lost 6 of his last 7 clay matches, and he's only 3-10 on clay this year. So you have a guy with home support who's been playing decent clay, I'd say, tennis recently, against a guy who's been really bad on clay all year, and a guy who is also, once again, not really at his best on clay in general. So give me the home support with Emer. I do think that minus 140 makes sense. It might go 3 sets, though. It's clay tennis. Who knows? Might be unpredictable. But I think Emer, who can be an emotional player at times, think he uses the crowd support to his benefit, and I do think that with the bad form Boyer's in, I think 140 is a decent price. Give me Emer, that is Emer, on the money line at a minus 140 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go to the Cerundolo matchup. This is the other Cerundolo, the JM Cerundolo. Give me Juan Manuel Cerundolo money line at plus 125. He's against Struff for this one. Now, Cerundolo is a clay specialist. He's been really good on clay all year. He is 33-16 on clay. He's a clay specialist, and he also made a clay final last week, so I know that he's in good form on clay, and he's been playing it nonstop. Struff, though, of course, played Wimbledon. He has not played on clay in a while. He has not played a clay match since the French Open, actually, on May 26th. Now, when he's on, he's a pretty good clay player. However, he's been really bad on clay this year. He's 1-6 on clay, so you're going to give me a challenger guy who's a clay specialist in good form, making a clay challenger final last week against Struff, who I know can be streaky. Yes, he played better on grass in Wimbledon. The point is, though, he has not played on clay in about a month and a half, and he's 1-6 on clay this year, and he's favored, which I find pretty insane to me. I think there's good value on Cerundolo. Give me Cerundolo money line at plus 125 as my dog for the show. So once again, the picks here for the lock and dog. The lock's going to be on Elias Emer, money line at minus 140 against Boyer. For the dog, give me Juan Manuel Cerundolo, money line at plus 125. It's going to wrap it up for the show. Now, I will point out, by the way, we will be back for the semifinals for Bastad and Gstaad. We are going to be skipping Los Cabos. The match is finished too late. I'm not going to get lines on time. It's not worth it. So I'm going to pass on Los Cabos. But for Bastad and Gstaad, I'm going to be in Florida next week. So I'm going on vacation. I will still be recording some episodes, but I will not be available for the quarters. So we're going to be waiting until the semis to resume those 2 events. Until next time, though, if I'm on Twitter, Reichel Radio, good luck to all of you and all of